Good afternoon. I wanted to make an update video on my Ariel Rider 52 volt X-Class. If you didn't watch the first video, which is my only other video, talked about raising the seat height. So I'm about 6'2", most of that's in the legs, so pedaling this thing was not an easy task. Those of you who have this bike know what I'm talking about. So I made out of some wood a riser and ended up raising the seat up 3 inches from its stock location. So that does help out a lot with the pedaling. Not that I do a lot of pedaling on this bike. I think most people find that the same way. You end up not pedaling a lot. And then I put on these BMX style handlebars, which I've linked in the first video. So enough about that. Today's video is more about storage, rear storage options. So what are we doing here? If you've been following the Ariel Rider accessory website, which I was obsessively for a long time, waiting for this little gem to come in. So this is the original cargo rack for the X series, and I got my bike, ordered it in August, got it back in December of 2021, and this thing just became available about 2 weeks ago. So, and this is, as you're watching it, this is July of 2022, so I did go ahead and put this on, had it on there for a couple of weeks. And on top of that, I mounted my Yescom tail pack. So there may be, that does show up in the other video. So anyways, I had the Yescom tail pack mounted to that. Originally, I had a homemade wooden rack underneath the Yescom. So I was able to mount this up. Again, it doesn't mount, this bracket doesn't exactly line up. So you are able to get 2 of the holes in here, if you can see that. So the front 2 will go in, but nothing on the back side. So what I did the first go around was utilize the Yescom kind of brackets that mount underneath. So those will mount something like that along these 2 crossbars and hold it on there. So that worked out just fine. The only negative there, of course, is it's kind of a permanent solution. So if you ever want to take that bracket off, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, total of 6 bolts on there. So not really easy to do that. So anyway, and further you know, obsessing or studying the Ariel Rider website, I came across these 2 items, the Rear Rack Pro and the passenger seat in black. So interestingly, on the website, this Rear Rack Pro is called a Cargo Rack Plus. Cargo Plus rack, so double check me on that, but I believe it's called a Cargo Rack Plus. So ordered that, that came in last Saturday, and the passenger saddle just came in today. So the concept here is, again, I am gonna bolt these up. I'll pause the video and bolt it up, but just gonna kind of give you the concept here. This guy will go on the back like so, and you've got 8 bolt holes on the rear here, which will allow you to attach tail pack or perhaps a milk crate like you see there. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video, put a couple of bolts through this guy so you can see how that's going to work. Okay, so we're back in. Now I've got the Cargo Rack Plus or Rear Rack Pro, depending on your point of view, just loosely mounted on the back there so you can see what's going on. This is available on the Ariel Rider website. I think it's $109, so it's not inexpensive, but again, this is really your only option in a lot of cases. So now, if I choose, I can go ahead and mount my Yescom tail pack. I feel like I'm giving them a plug all the time, but I can mount the base plate for this tail pack on here like so, and then have the tail pack further out to the rear of the bike, giving you more room in front. And you say, well, more room in front for what? Well, that's where this little beauty comes in. So if you were waiting for the longer saddle, as I was, originally my plan was to go to the longer saddle, take this 3-inch riser off, put on the longer saddle, and then just sit further back on the bike as I'm riding. I put the taller bars on, so I've got more of a reach. It would be okay to sit further back on the bike. But then I got to thinking about, well, it might occasionally be okay to put a passenger on the back there, just for short periods. This bike is rated at 300 pounds, so without saying, I already take up a good chunk of that 300 pounds, so I'd have to find a pretty light passenger to go on back. So what I noticed was this is a new option here, so this is a separate passenger seat, so ordered this guy as well. See, it comes with some studs on the bottom there. And again, when this was first announced under the 52 volt X-Class accessory page, they said that it worked with the rear cargo rack. And again, I assumed that to mean this guy here, this first one that I had. And certainly these bolts will go through these holes like so. But anyway, the threads are not long enough for that to, again, go through the back part of the bike. So there's no way to put this on and use this particular short rack without some extensive modifications. And even if you did, that's got 4 bolts from the bottom, or 4 bolts, nuts through the bottom there. So again, it wouldn't be very easy to take on and off if you were in a situation where you didn't want the passenger saddle to be mounted up. So the idea with this guy now is it mounts right in that spot there, so it gives you the potential to have a passenger on the back. Again, there's the passenger foot pegs, and still have your tail trunk behind, or I did run this for a while if you're into the milk crate look. Just kind of give you a little bit of an idea there. That'll stay a little bit long, but you could certainly run a milk crate on the back of the bike as well. Almost turn the camera, don't want to do that. So that's kind of what that would look like. So I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and run with the with my tail trunk again, because that seemed to be a pretty good option. You'll notice that you do get another Ariel Rider logo on the back here. So depending on how you feel about that, you've got double logoage. But the real interesting thing about this rack is you'll notice it's got a bracket for the taillight on the back here. I'm like, well, cool. That will simply take the taillight from its original location, undo the zip tie, and remount it back here. So I went to do that the other night. Number one, the wire's not long enough. So on this taillight, this probably will not show up, but there's an inline plug in the wire there, and I forget what they call those kind of plugs. It has a name, but a little 5-pin plug that the light plugs into. So there's not enough wire to extend it to the back there, and it does have 4 or 5 leads in it, so I wasn't going to snip the wire and then try to extend it. But the other funny thing is this hole right here. So if you were to extend the wire and bring it back, the plug would have to go through this hole. The light mounts from the back here, so the plug that's on that brake light wire is too big. It won't fit through this hole. So A, not enough wire. B, the hole's not big enough. Again, I've got drills. I can drill that thing out. But I did send a note to Ariel Rider tech support, and just got a response back today saying basically, oh, unfortunately, the factory tail light, apologies, lost you there for a minute, but yeah, so the tail light, according to Ariel Rider customer support, does not work as it comes. So he sent me a link, Josh, to Amazon of all places, to get an extension, so a male to female extension wire with that special kind of a plug on it. And again, I'll put the link up below in the description, but which would enable you to extend that wire. Of course, it's not going to help the problem that that plug on the back of the taillight is still not going to fit through that hole. So just know going in, if you buy this setup and you want to move your taillight, which I think you do, right? Because otherwise it's going to be way back here as opposed to back here. So to me, the taillight should be relocated. And in my response back to Ariel Rider tech support, I suggested that, you know, for $109, they might throw one of those in the box, right? But, you know, I do love this bike, so I'll give them a little bit of slack, I guess, with their consumer direct model. But for 109, you don't get the wire in the box. If I didn't mention, the extension saddle, I think, is $69. So with freight and tax and everything in, you know, it was almost $250 for this particular setup. So, you know, I did kind of expect it to be complete. But, you know, we're on the cutting edge here, folks, right? Also, you've got the ability, it looks like, to mount some pannier type bags to the rear, which I'm assuming what a lot of people might want to do with this rack setup. So, all right, I'm going to pause the video again. I'm going to go ahead and bolt the passenger saddle on here and go ahead and mount up my rear tail pack so you can see what the final version looks like. Hang on. Okay, back again. So now you can see I've got the rear passenger saddle mounted, and I've got the base for the tail trunk mounted. And for those of you paying attention, you might notice that I had to flip the passenger seat around. So before we had the Ariel Rider both facing the same direction. Anyway, I didn't move that because I didn't like the look of it. But due to the shape of this seat, if I turn it the other way, it rubs against this, again, this custom riser that I made for my saddle. So it wouldn't physically mount that way. But honestly, I think it looks a little better facing this direction. You know, maybe I'm just rationalizing, but I think it looks just fine. You know, the Ariel Rider logo is tucked away in there. But so time will tell if it's a benefit, if anybody can actually sit on that part of the bike. I haven't taken any riding videos. I don't have a tripod or that kind of setup, but maybe I'll have somebody film me riding it so you can get a bit of an action shot on there. But yeah, I think that's going to be the setup for a while. I can go ahead and mount the trunk on there, show you what that looks like. Slides in 2 front hooks. Lock. Again, we're doing it live here, people. No second takes. So that's what we get. Okay, so now we're clicked in. Now we're clicked in. So there's a shot of what that looks like with the extended cargo rack, the passenger extended seat, and the tail trunk all mounted up. So anyway, pretty happy with that. I'll give that a go for a while. Again, I mentioned if you're into milk crate, which I do like the milk crate look, but I got these off of Etsy, and that was a tip from Woodtick Greg. If you haven't watched his videos, I recommend you check out Woodtick Greg. But this was a guy on Etsy that he found that makes these little brackets. You put them inside of the bottom of a milk crate, and it'll mount directly to the Ariel Rider rack in one of those 8 pre-threaded holes that I showed you earlier. So that is kind of nice. So I may go back to the milk crate version, and you can eliminate that base underneath the tail trunk. So it might clean it up just a little bit. But and when you do order the either of these racks, either the standard rack or the passenger rear rack Pro, you get a nice bag of stainless steel hardware and some rubber bushings in there that sit between the bracket, the cargo rack that is, and the paint on your bike. So anyways, I think that's going to do it for today's video. Thanks for watching. Any questions, post them in the comments, and I'll try to answer to the best of my experience. Again, I'm not a professional user here, but just an enthusiast. So anyway, hope you all have a great day, and thanks for checking out.